Hi, Nick Osborne with Go Sports Performance Center. Now, we've had a couple parents come to us and say, you really need to tell people that aren't coming to Go Sports Performance what the difference between you and everyone else is. So what I want to do is give you a little bit of an educational video here. They're going to be 5 really short videos that explains the difference between Go Sports Performance and everything else you have to go to, or your athlete has to go to get better at their sport. Because that's what we're really after at Go Sports Performance, is making your athletes better in their sport. We're not trying to create weight room monsters. We're trying to create better athletes, safer and healthier athletes, and we go about it in kind of a unique way. So the first aspect I want to talk about is go safer. This is one of our 5 main principles for running our business. And for us, and for a lot of parents, it's the most important aspect of our program. A lot of times our youth or our younger athletes don't think about getting injured. However, injuries really set back the athlete, whether it's a major injury that ends an athlete's career or ends them participating for the rest of the year, or it's a minor injury that continues to nag them over time. We want to eliminate most of these injuries, and with our training protocols, we have found that we can lessen the severity of contact injuries and really reduce up to 90% of non-contact injuries by training correctly. But people always ask us, why are injuries so prevalent today compared to when we were athletes in our youth? So I'm going to go over the points for you so you understand what the difference with our program is and why your athlete is more likely to get injured today than at any other time in history. First, lack of strength while they're in competition. So most of the athletes that your athlete's going to be in competition with are going to be in some sort of strength conditioning program. And if your athlete's not, they're at a disadvantage and they're competing against somebody who's basically physically stronger than them. The next reason why your athlete has a chance of getting more injured today is 2-dimensional strength. And this is prevalent in almost every aspect, all of our competitors, the high school programs, junior high programs, and all of that. 2-dimensional strength means we go up and down in our lifting program. However, almost every sport is played side to side, front and back, and up and down. So we're only training 1 dimension, or 2 of the dimensions, 1 plane of motion, when we're really operating in 3 planes. We're going front, back, side to side, up and down, twisting. We're doing all of this. However, our lifting program in the off season just goes up and down. This is one of the reasons why a lot of young athletes, when they are training in the off season, they are basically following a power lifters program. They've got the weight back on their heels, they're squatting with their butt back, they're bent over, the bar's halfway down their back, and it's just a goofy way of lifting, but allows the athlete to move more and more weight. The problem is the athlete can't transfer hardly any of that strength to the sport that they're in, plus those are the exact opposite physical traits that you want your athlete to have in their sport. We don't want our athlete in any aspect of their sport standing on their heels, but we do that in the weight room. Now, I'm not saying we want to lift way up on our toes, but we want a balanced lifting program, and most strength conditioning coaches don't teach proper lifting mechanics when it comes to sports performance. They're just interested in making the squats go from 300 to 400, bench press go from 350 to 450 or whatever it is, and they're just not really in the business of training sports performance lifting. Another aspect is most of the time, and this kind of goes along with the last one, our athletes are not prepared for the movements that they're going to do in their sport and the positions that their body's going to be in when they're lifting. What I mean by that is most of the time our athletes are doing squats with 2 feet parallel and the bar on their back, which is great for a strength program. However, they're going to be exhibiting force in their sport with their legs separated, or standing on one leg, or with one arm pushing or pulling, or rotational. But we don't train that at most high school programs and most of our competitors. Again, it's all Olympic lifting, it's all power lifting, and it's not really athletic lifting. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're training in the planes of motion during the type of movements that we're going to do in our sports so that it's not a foreign concept when the athlete goes from the weight room or the sports performance center into their sport. It's just a natural flow. The body should be able to step out of the weight room and go right in and play the sport without much transition. Another reason why athletes get injured is lack of stability. Now, the shoulders and the hips are ball and socket joints. We have to train them different than our hinge joints like our elbows and our knees. So we got to make sure that those muscles that are surrounding the hips, surrounding the shoulders, can stabilize those joints so we end up with less and less injuries. But we end up training wrong to do that. Most of the time our athletes, especially our young males, are doing too much pushing, not enough pulling, and not enough minor stability work on the shoulders and the hips to actually be able to produce the force that they should in a safe way that doesn't ruin the shoulder joint or ruin the hip and thus ruin the lower back. Most of our athletes today get up every morning and they have lower back problems because of the hips, hamstrings, and lower back not working well together. And that comes to our next point. The hips and the shoulders don't have proper range of motion most of the time, especially with our athletes that are trying to increase their bench press for whatever reason, or overhead press with a bar, or God forbid that they get in and start using machines, which is one of the most horrible things that you can do for an athlete, because you're making them strong in a way that they can't ever use that type of strength in their sport because they can't stabilize themselves in three-dimensional space. So we got to make sure that we're having an athlete use proper range of motion in the hips and the shoulders before we load them. That's one of the keys to Go Sports Performance, is this progression. Proper movement patterns, then proper range of motion, and then load, and then speed load. So you got to do it in that order, or you're just creating injuries for our athletes. And we've seen statistics show that at most programs that almost 50% of athletes end up with an injury within 90 days. And that's something that is just horrible to us at Go Sports. One of the other reasons why athletes end up injured is max effort or max testing too often. At Go Sports Performance, we don't do max testing because it doesn't really translate into sports performance. It's an ego-driven training modality that makes no sense. It doesn't matter if an athlete can bench 350 pounds while they're trying to get better in their sport. Makes no sense. If our girls can bench 150 pounds, who cares? It's, can they exhibit that type of strength in a standing position for most sports in a safe way that makes them a better athlete? That's what we're really after. And max testing doesn't equate to sports performance at all. We generally, with max testing, create those weight room monsters, the ones that do nothing but increase their strength, but they end up becoming less and less athletic, sit on the bench, or get injured. And that's what we're trying to avoid at Go Sports Performance. And the last thing that I want to go over with the reasons why we get injured more often today is class size and the amount of instruction. At most places that I've come in contact with, in most high schools, you've got your sports performance or our lifting program with 15, 20, 40 kids in a room all at once lifting. So and you might have one instructor per 30 kids or 20 kids. How is anybody ever getting the type of instruction that they should, or the type of supervision that they should? At Go Sports Performance, we've limited our class size to a maximum of 8 athletes per coach. That's right, only 8. The national recommendation is 12, and we've reduced it to 8. And we've made it affordable so that you can get this individualized instruction model at an affordable price. That way our athletes go and become better and better each and every day, each and every year, and they are safer than they ever were without Go Sports Performance. One of the other aspects that parents really like about Go Sports Performance, and athletes do, is we train at the right level. We want to make sure that the athlete is being challenged mentally and physically without frustrating them. If you have an athlete that is having a really tough time with stability issues or cutting left and right, which is a single leg dominant exercise, You don't go in and have them do those movements because it's just going to frustrate them. You take them back a step, figure out which fundamental that they're missing, and then have them work on those fundamentals so that they can grow and grow and grow. Most of our competitors throw athletes into one of two programs and then train them, and the athlete learns to compensate to mimic that they're getting better, but they end up hurting themselves over time or setting themselves up for failure because the compensation that their body's coming up with to be better at their sport is not something that's truly fundamental, proper moving, and they end up at a level that they can't rise above because they don't have the fundamentals that they need to actually go further and further. One of the things that we do at the Go Sports Performance Orientation is we test all the athletes' athletic ability and find out, are they missing any fundamentals? And if they can't cut left and right, they don't have proper speed, they can't produce power over and over, they don't have the strength or endurance in the core to actually allow strength to come from the legs through the core to the upper body, we point those things out, put the athlete in the proper training level, and then let them develop those fundamentals and move on and become better and better athletes. That's what we do at Go Sports. We produce better athletes, not better weight room monsters. So it's all about creating safer, healthier athletes because a healthier athlete stays in their sport longer and gets better and better. If you end up with injuries and you have to take a week, 3 weeks off, 6 months off, you can't get better at your sport. So that's one of the differences between Go Sports Performance and every place else. So if you'd like more information, stop in, give us a call, check out our website, whatever you want to do. We'll get with you, set you up for an orientation. If you want to come in and do an evaluation, we'll do that too. If you do it on one of our predetermined days, we won't even charge you. So, Nick Osborne with Go Sports Performance, helping you create a better and safer athlete so that they can go on and do whatever they want in their sport.